The term gang stalking before? Well, whether or not you believe that gang stalking exists, one thing that is true is that anytime you try to leave an abusive situation, an environment, or any kind of abusive dynamic, especially when it relates to spiritual abuse, there can be coordinated efforts to try to destabilize you. And that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. My name is Dr. Felicia, and I'm a licensed psychologist. And my channel focuses on spiritual abuse as well as other types of abuse. So, back to gang stalking. It's a term that I've heard quite often, and I've had some questions in the comment section about it. So, I thought I'd address it today in the video. So, first of all, what is gang stalking? I'm going to define it in this video as a coordinated effort that is covert and that is meant to coerce and control. So remember all these C's, right? If you remember three big C's is that number one, it's coordinated. Number two, it's covert. And number three, it's meant to control. Coercion is a form of control, but it's more pressure than direct control. Okay. So when we talk about this term in the space specifically of spiritual abuse, it's really important to remember that when these things are happening, the people who are doing this have a goal in mind, okay? And so, um, first of all, I'm going to explain what it could look like. And many of you have talked about different ways that you feel you've been targeted in this manner. It could be things like a bunch of texts, right? Hey, checking in, you know, but you feel like the texts are too much, right? And while they're saying it's checking in, what the text really are trying to ascertain is where you are and what you're doing. Okay. So there could be text like that. There could also be pressure to just talk, right? Have you ever been like ambushed before? Maybe you are out and about, or maybe you're in this church that's spiritually abusive or wherever it is, and you're on your way out, you're on your way to the bathroom, and you bump into someone and they're like, "Oh, hey, so and so, how are you doing? Oh, I just want to talk. Just want to talk really, really briefly." Right. And then it ends up being like a 2 hour lecture where you're bombarded with all this stuff and other people show up and whatever. And things like this can and do happen. So that's why you have to be aware of this. And the just talk rarely ever turns out right. I've heard of situations if you watch the news where people are trying to leave an abusive relationship and the abusive person wants to just talk and then it ends up with somebody being harmed or unalived. So be aware of that. Another thing you'll notice is what you feel like digital monitoring, right? And so that might mean like maybe, you're on social media, you post something, and then like maybe somebody responds like right away. Like you feel like somebody's kind of like following you everywhere online, or maybe you get like these random requests to get followed, right? The point is that just like you would feel stalked in real life, you feel stalked digitally. And so another way that this can show up is, and again, remember that this is, when I talk about it, I'm talking about a coordinated effort, right? So this is a group of people or a system against one person. So you have to remember that when you're trying to like delineate the power dynamics here, because your strategy has to keep that power differential in mind, okay? And as an aside, or if you have not subscribed to this channel and you would like to, please do so. It just takes a minute to see if you're subscribed and also to see if you're receiving notifications. Some people are telling me they're not receiving notifications. So please make sure you have the notification bell on. And yeah, and if you feel led to, please share this video. I think it would be, helpful for other people. And so if you feel so as well, share it. Thank you. Um, Another thing that you might see is kind of like the same message from a bunch of people. And this is like a threat that looks like concern. So an example of that could be, maybe you get like an email from somebody somewhere in this, organization, and they may say something like, hey, we've noticed that you haven't been here in a while. And, and then they may say something like, oh, don't forget that wherever you go, there you are, and no place is perfect. And, just keep that in mind, right? So it kind of, that the concern isn't real. It's more of like something, like watch out, like watch your back, basically. Um, or it could be something like, hey, remember X, Y, and Z. It might be remember this thing that you signed, or remember whatever it is, right? And it's meant to control you, right? Through a threat. And when this happens from like a bunch of people, or you see it repeatedly, that could be a way of gang stalking, right? And so if as you're thinking about this, try, if you've been in a situation like this, I'd like to hear from you in the comments about how you dealt with it. Um, but it also, the thing with this is that it can seem minor, right? Some people might be like, oh, that's just a coincidence. But the alarm bells go off when this starts to happen repeatedly and you see it from like a whole bunch of people. It may be like a lot of you have talked about this, a sermon theme, right? So let's say you leave this spiritually abusive environment, and then the very next Sunday or whatever day it is, the pastor talks about honor and loyalty, and how, and thanking all the people that are loyal to him or her, and that people that just leave, and take people with them, that God will deal with them. And just like he dealt with this person in the Bible or whatever, that is a veiled threat, right? Because that person, that they're talking about you, but they can easily say like, oh, we're not. And then now they're getting like their base fired up, right? And they may say something like, hey, if you know someone who left, why don't you just reach out to them and, let them know, speak the truth in love, and let them know, hey, that there may be judgment, and make sure that when they leave to to not gossip, and to speak honorably of your leader, things like that, right? And so that is how these things show up. And another thing that is really important to remember is that when this happens in these environments, these people have no problem like finding and contacting people that are important in your life, like family, maybe coworkers, things like that, and just being like, oh, we're so worried about so and so. We haven't seen them in a while, or they've been acting really strange lately, and oh, this and this. And so they're planting seeds of doubt in the minds of people that are supposed to be your biggest supporters, right? And so you know, how do you deal with this, right? I mean, this is not a deep dive at all, but another thing I want you to remember with this is, what is the goal? The goal is to weaken your credibility. Remember, I talked a lot about humiliation rituals on this channel, right? And so these things that are happening with these gang stalking efforts, and remember how I'm defining it here, right? I'm defining it in a very limited scope related to spiritual abuse, but these efforts are meant to destabilize you, right? Think about a situation when you are in fear, fight or flight mode. What are you going to do? Are you going to react, or you're going to respond? You're going to react. And when you react, you're more likely to make mistakes, right? Think about, maybe, you get a phone call, something happens somewhere, you need to get there ASAP, and you might run out of the house and leave your wallet at home by accident, right? When we're rushing, we don't think through. And so that's what these systems want to do to you. They want to destabilize you, make you react out of fear. And, think about things like, oh, we just want to talk, right? And if you didn't do anything, you don't have to anything to worry about, right? That kind of rhetoric, it puts you on the spot, and it makes you feel a lot of pressure to do something, and especially clear your name, or defend your character. So I want you to get out of that mindset. And remember that when these groups of people are doing this, number one, they want to get you to react. And then number two, they want to weaken your credibility, right? So if you, let's say that you are like at home and one of these people shows up at your home and you ask them to leave, they don't leave, and then you start, crashing out, getting angry, losing control, and they're recording you, right? That they can use that against you. And so it's really important to remember that you want to be in control of what you can control. And the best way you do that is you just don't engage with that kind of rhetoric, right? So be calm. There's many things that you can do. One of the things that I recommend is number one, document things, right? And documenting helps you just I guess reestablish or establish the fact that, look, I see what's happening. I know what's happening. This is what this person said or this person said. Document by writing down, screenshots, screen recording, whatever you need to do to document that information, right? Another thing you want to do is you really kind of want to be very boring. And so it's kind of like the equivalent of gray rocking. That's another pop psychology term that I'll talk about at some point, but basically just be as boring as possible. It's almost like, it's an old term, but playing possum or pretending that you're, asleep or whatever. So whoever is attacking you leaves you alone. You want to do that. Some people make the mistake of like shutting down everything, like, well, I'm going to delete all my social media and this, but that can almost like tip people off. And so what you want to do is you just want to be very boring. You might have your social media up. And again, you're going to have to figure out what works best for you. But maybe if you have your social media up, maybe you just say very boring things and things that happened like, weeks ago or whatever, not updating everybody on your every move. Because remember, the more information you put out there is more information that can be used to try and control you. Okay. And then also, I want you to have a script and stick to it. So let's say that you are, you feel ambushed. Oh, we just want to meet with you. And then you say, I got to leave. I have an appointment. Oh, it's only going to take 2 minutes. I have an appointment. And you want to pair that script with something you do with your body. So it may mean turning your body slightly away and say, I'll see you later. I have an appointment, and you walk away, right? This is what you say and you do with your body so that there is no opportunity for a response, right? Or, just things like that. It may mean tipping off your family and friends and being like, hey, you know what? You may get contacted by these people. I'd really appreciate if you just didn't, let them know my whereabouts. I need privacy, things like that. I want it to be simple and I want you to rehearse it, right? But the whole point, if you think about this, the solution for this is the same. You want to be in control. You want to be regulated. You don't want to react. You want to make sure that you are composed and that you are also gathering the evidence you need. Sometimes we think, oh, we need to confront all these people. Remember what I said at the beginning of this video, it's you versus a system, right? And so you really want to be careful how you engage. So I love to hear from you in the comments. What have your experiences been? What have you done that you found has been helpful, not so helpful? So let me know in the comments. And my website is skillsetcounseling.com. You can go there to find more information about my practice and what I do. I hope you have a wonderful day that is filled with peace. Bye-bye.